The night shift that changed everything. Before we begin, let me ask you something important. Have you ever met someone in the most unexpected place, at the most unlikely moment, and somehow they changed your life forever? If the answer is yes, you know exactly why you should subscribe to this channel. We don't just tell stories here. We unearth miracles, expose truths, and honor the forgotten souls who still have something to say. If you're the kind of person who believes that even in the darkest hospital room, a spark of light can change destiny, then hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with us, because the story you're about to hear is going to haunt you forever. It all began on a stormy Thursday night in the cardiac wing of St. Elora Hospital. The kind of night where the fluorescent lights buzz just a little louder and the halls feel a little too empty. Andrew, a 29-year-old nurse, had just started his overnight shift. He was new to the city, new to the hospital, but not new to loneliness. He'd taken the graveyard shift not just for the extra pay, but because the silence helped him think. He didn't expect anything different that night. Room checks, medication schedules, maybe the occasional emergency. But fate had other plans. At exactly 11:03 p.m., the charge nurse handed him a clipboard and pointed down the hall. "Room 407, she said, almost hesitantly. "Mr. Ramiro Gomez, he's on the watch list. Palliative care, no visitors, no family, mostly unresponsive, but he's been asking for someone. Keep saying he'll come tonight. You're the only one on rotation, so good luck." Andrew frowned. "He'll come tonight? What does that even mean?" The nurse shrugged. "Probably just the morphine talking." Andrew walked down the dim hallway, the hum of the fluorescent lights above buzzing like static in his chest. He opened the door to room 407 slowly. The air inside was heavy, like it had been holding its breath for years. There, lying in the bed with a thin oxygen tube and a gaze that didn't seem to focus on anything in particular, was Mr. Ramiro Gomez. He looked almost mummified, skin like parchment, eyes sunken, but strangely alive. Not alert, but not gone either. Suspended. "Good evening, Mr. Gomez. I'm Nurse Andrew," he said gently. "I'll be with you tonight." The man didn't respond. Andrew checked his vitals, adjusted his IV. Everything looked stable, though barely. As he turned to leave, a hoarse voice cracked through the silence. "You're late," Ramiro whispered. Andrew froze. "Excuse me? You were supposed to come earlier, but I forgive you. You look like him." Andrew turned slowly. "Like who?" Ramiro's eyes locked onto his. For the first time, there was clarity. The boy with the camera, the one who saw everything but said nothing. Andrew felt a strange chill crawl up his spine. "Sir, I think you're confusing me with someone else." But Ramiro shook his head. "No, you're exactly who I need. I've been waiting for this night to tell my story, because once I do, I can finally go." Andrew stepped closer, drawn in by something unexplainable. "What story?" Ramiro took a shaky breath. "The one no one believes. The one they buried along with the others. The one about the girl, and the war, and the silence." Andrew pulled up a chair, uncertain but curious. "I'm listening." And with those two words, something ancient shifted in that room. The hospital faded, the machines disappeared, and time itself seemed to pause, as if the universe had been waiting for someone, anyone, to listen. What Andrew didn't know was that this night would lead him into the center of a mystery, buried decades ago, and what he'd learn would turn his world upside down. And the strangest part, it had already begun. The story that time tried to bury. The clock in room 407 ticked louder than normal, or maybe it was just Andrew's heartbeat. He leaned forward, both elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on the fragile man in the bed. Ramiro wasn't just another terminal patient. There was something ancient about him, like he had lived 100 lives in one, and he was ready to unload all of them tonight. I was 27, Ramiro began, his voice barely above a whisper, a field reporter for an independent agency. They sent me to a forgotten war zone, a place not even maps dared to name. Villages were vanishing overnight. Children disappeared. Mothers burned in churches, but nobody talked about it. I was there to document, just document. Andrew didn't interrupt. I stayed in a makeshift camp with other journalists. We had one satellite phone, limited power, and fear, lots of fear. On the third night, we heard a bombing just beyond the forest line. I grabbed my camera. The others told me not to go, but I went. He paused, closing his eyes. I found it. The orphanage, or what was left of it. Andrew held his breath. Everything was ash and rubble, bodies everywhere. But then I heard it, a voice, not a scream, a song, soft, like a lullaby. It was coming from beneath a collapsed wall. I started digging with my bare hands. Ramiro's eyes glistened now, and there she was, a little girl, maybe 8, soot all over her face but not a scratch on her. She looked at me and asked, "Did my mother send you?" Andrew swallowed hard. "What did you say?" I said yes, I lied, but she smiled and held my hand. Andrew tried to make sense of the scene forming in his mind. It was too vivid, too precise. I took her to a Red Cross tent and gave the nurse a slip of paper with my name and contact. I told the girl I'd come back, that I'd find her after the war. But I didn't. I got reassigned to another zone, then another, and eventually I lost track of her. I tried to find her, but no records, no photos, no names. She was erased, like the village itself. Ramiro looked down. "I don't know why I'm still alive, Andrew, but I feel like I've been kept here until someone could hear this." Andrew finally spoke. "You think I was meant to come here, to hear your story?" Ramiro nodded. "I don't think it, I know it. There's more, but I need to rest a moment." Andrew stood and adjusted the sheets. "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." As he walked out of the room to get a glass of water, he ran into Dr. Clara. "How's room 407?" she asked casually. "He's extraordinary," Andrew said. "Do you know anything about his past?" Clara frowned. "Ramiro Gomez? All I know is he's been in and out of care homes for decades. No family, quiet, non-compliant sometimes, especially when they mention therapy. Why? He just told me he rescued a girl during a war, a little girl singing under rubble, said he never found her again." Clara froze. "What did you say?" she whispered. "He saved a girl. Her name was Valentina." Clara dropped her clipboard. Andrew blinked. "Doctor?" Clara's voice shook. "My name is Valentina Clara Delgado, the girl from the ashes." The hallway fell into a stillness that no hospital alarm or code call could break. Clara stood there, her face pale, her eyes locked on Andrew as if he had just cracked open a vault she spent a lifetime sealing shut. "You said Valentina?" she whispered. Andrew nodded slowly. "That's what he called her. Said he never knew what happened after." Clara backed against the wall, her chest rising fast. "He described the bombing." "Yes, the orphanage. He said it was reduced to rubble. I was there." Her voice trembled. "I was the girl." Andrew's breath caught. Clara turned and walked quickly toward room 407. Andrew followed, unable to process the enormity of what was unfolding. When they entered, Ramiro had his eyes closed again, lips moving silently, perhaps praying, perhaps remembering. "Mr. Gomez," Clara said softly. He opened his eyes. "It's me," she continued. "The girl, the one under the rubble. I used to sing because my mother told me the angels would hear me better that way." Ramiro's lower lip quivered. His eyes filled instantly with tears. "No, that can't be. You're real? I've always remembered you," Clara said, walking slowly toward the bed. You had a voice like a storm, and kind eyes. You wrapped me in your coat. You smelled like old leather and tobacco. I thought you were an angel. Ramiro chuckled through the tears. I was no angel. I was just a man who didn't want you to die alone. Clara sat beside him now, trembling. I became a doctor because of you. I searched for years, but I had no name, no photograph. I only remembered your eyes. But when I heard you told Andrew about the girl, I knew. Andrew watched from the corner, goosebumps racing across his skin. It was like the air itself had thickened, every breath loaded with something sacred. I never forgave myself, Ramiro whispered. I promised I'd come back, and I didn't. You came back tonight, Clara said. That promise, it waited. Until now. They sat in silence for a long time, just the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor filling the space between breaths. Then Clara said, There's more. I need you to meet someone. She stepped out, her heels echoing like gunshots in the hall. Andrew approached Ramiro. Do you believe in fate now? I never stopped, the old man smiled. I just forgot how to recognize it. Moments later, Clara returned, this time with a teenage girl beside her. She was tall, confident, with the same soft brown eyes Clara once had. But what struck Andrew was her calm presence, like someone who had lived far more than her years. This is my daughter, Clara said. Her name is Lucia Valentina. I named her after the girl you saved, the girl I was. Lucia stepped forward and reached for Ramiro's hand. I've heard about you my entire life, she said. You're the reason my mom survived, the reason I exist. Ramiro couldn't speak. Tears streamed down his face. I want you to know, Lucia continued, voice steady, you didn't just save a girl. You created a legacy. You gave us a beginning. Ramiro squeezed her hand. No, I was just a witness. You're the ones who built everything that came after. The room shimmered with the kind of warmth that no heating system could create. For the first time in decades, Ramiro felt peace. But Andrew still had questions. Something about the story didn't fully make sense. There were missing pieces, things unsaid. Later that night, while Ramiro rested and Clara took Lucia home, Andrew sat by the window reading Ramiro's chart again. There was a sealed envelope tucked in the back. He opened it. Inside, a faded photograph. A young Ramiro, standing in front of a demolished building, and beside him, another man, also holding a camera. On the back, property of CL Foundation, subject, number 12. Subject? Andrew frowned. What did that mean, and why was the handwriting familiar? He flipped the page again, a second photo, and what he saw made his blood run cold. It was him, Andrew, standing beside Ramiro, in a photo that had to be at least 30 years old. The photo that shouldn't exist. Andrew sat frozen, the faded photograph trembling in his hand. The air in room 407 felt colder, heavier, as if something had shifted around him. He stared at the image again. There was no mistaking it. It was him, standing next to a much younger Ramiro in front of the ruined orphanage. But how? That photo was decades old, long before he was even born. He turned the envelope upside down, nothing else inside. Just that cryptic message, property of CL Foundation, subject number 12. The term subject made his skin crawl. He rushed back into the room. Ramiro was still awake, breathing slowly, eyes blinking with age but alive. Mr. Gomez, Andrew said, holding up the photo. Do you recognize this? Ramiro squinted, then let out a shaky breath. Where did you get that? It was in your file. Ramiro's face turned pale. His fingers clutched the blanket. I didn't know they still had that. Who took it? When was this? Ramiro looked up at him, his voice dry. Do you believe in time loops, Andrew? Andrew frowned. What are you talking about? I told you that you looked like the boy who saw everything but said nothing. That boy was you. That's not possible. I'm 29. This picture is from before I was born. Ramiro shook his head. What if time isn't what we think it is? What if some moments are so important they echo? What if trauma, grief, and guilt are strong enough to fold reality? Andrew stepped back. You're saying I was there, that I traveled through time? No, I'm saying you've always been there. We just keep meeting, again and again. Andrew's heart pounded. This is insane. Ramiro smiled. And yet here you are, in this room, at this hour, holding that photo. Andrew looked again at the image. His younger self stood with a haunted expression, holding something in his hands. A small notebook? A recorder? It was hard to tell. Why is this labeled Subject Data 12? Ramiro's tone changed. Because I wasn't the only one who survived that war. I wasn't just a journalist. I was recruited by a private agency. They were studying something unnatural. Children who couldn't die. People who kept showing up in different eras. I ran away before they could make me forget. Andrew's voice cracked. And you think I'm... Ramiro nodded. You don't remember because you're not supposed to, but maybe you're waking up now. The photo is proof. Andrew collapsed into the chair, his mind spiraling. Everything felt unstable, like the floor might disappear under him. Do you remember dreams where you're somewhere you've never been, but everything feels familiar? Yes, Andrew whispered. All the time. And the little girl singing in the rubble. Do you remember her song? Andrew's lips trembled. Without knowing why, he began to hum a soft melody. Ramiro's eyes widened. That's it, he whispered. That's her song. Andrew stood. I need answers. Real ones. You won't find them in books, Ramiro said. You'll find them in the people you're drawn to. You'll find them in Clara, in Lucia, and in me. Andrew stared at the old man. Then tell me everything, now. Ramiro took a long, rattling breath. Okay, but some truths don't just set you free. They shatter everything you thought was real. Just then, the door burst open. A woman in a lab coat entered, tall, stern, and unfamiliar. Her ID badge read, Dr. H. Lin, CL Foundation. She looked at Andrew, then at the photo in his hand. You've seen it, she said flatly. Andrew's voice was cold. Who are you? The question, she replied, is who are you? Files that were never meant to be opened. The silence in room 407 cracked like glass. Andrew stood face to face with the woman in the white lab coat. Dr. H. Lin. She was maybe in her 40s, skin pale, black hair tied tightly behind her head, and a presence so commanding the temperature seemed to drop with her arrival. You've seen the photo, she repeated. Andrew nodded slowly. It was in his file. She stepped closer and extended her hand. Give it to me. Andrew pulled it back. No, I want answers. Now. Ramiro sat up slightly, veins in his neck pulsing. Leave him alone, Lin. He doesn't belong to you. Dr. Lin turned to the old man. He always did. You were just the carrier. Andrew's eyes darted between them. What does that mean? Lin sighed. Mr. Gomez was part of a program that should have never existed. It was shut down decades ago, but its effects linger. You were one of the anomalies. We called you Subject Now 12. You were different. You appeared in photos across multiple conflict zones, always the same face, same age. Never a birth certificate, no death record, just presence. Andrew's voice trembled. You're saying I've existed for decades? Lin nodded. Or longer. The records go back 71 years. Ramiro whispered, he's not a subject, he's a witness. Lin ignored him. You were found once in Chernobyl, then again in Bosnia, later in Syria, always helping, always silent, until the day we lost track of you. Andrew stumbled back, gripping the bedrail. This is crazy. I was born in 1994. I have a mother, a life. You have memories, Lynn interrupted. Memories we may have placed there, or perhaps ones you constructed yourself. Andrew's knees buckled. He sat down, hands shaking, his entire life suddenly feeling like a film reel spliced together by someone else. Ramiro reached out. I kept the photo because I knew one day you'd need proof. I remembered you, Andrew, not just your face, your presence. When I pulled that girl from the rubble, you were there, watching, always watching. Andrew whispered, I don't remember that. You will, Lynn said. Soon. Andrew looked at her, pain in his voice. Why me? Lynn took a long breath. Because you don't age like the others. You don't die. We think you might be a temporal anchor. Ramiro scoffed. He's a human being. Lynn nodded. Perhaps, or perhaps something older. Andrew stood, fury rising in his chest. I don't care what you call me. I won't be part of this. I won't let you control me. Lynn raised an eyebrow. We're not here to control. We're here to observe. You've already done everything we needed by waking up. What do you mean? Lynn stepped back. This room, this moment, it's the nexus. Every time we ran simulations, it always ended here. Room 407, with you, the witness, him, the carrier, and the girl, the echo. Clara, Andrew said. You mean Clara? Lynn tilted her head. She was never meant to find him. That was the variable we couldn't predict. Her memory, it reactivated you. Andrew's head spun. Reactivated. You were dormant, Lynn said, living an ordinary life. But her presence triggered a recall, and now, everything changes. Ramiro's voice cracked. Don't listen to her, Andrew. You're more than what they say. Andrew looked down at his hands. He remembered moments now, flashbacks, not full but fragments, fires, dust, screams in languages he didn't know, and always the same melody. A little girl's voice. Singing, Lynn turned toward the door. You have 48 hours. After that, your memories will stabilize or vanish forever. The choice is yours, but either way, the Foundation will be watching. And with that, she left. Just like that. No fight, no struggle. Just the echo of her heels down the hallway. Andrew collapsed in the chair. Ramiro was crying again. You were never supposed to carry this alone, the old man whispered, but you always did. Andrew held the photo tight, now realizing that the younger version of himself wasn't just witnessing the war. He was escaping from something, or returning to it. The echo that won't die that night. Andrew didn't sleep. How could he? Every blink brought flashes that didn't belong to his life, at least not the one he remembered. He sat alone in the hospital chapel as rain tapped endlessly on the stained glass windows. He stared at his hands, hoping they'd start to look unfamiliar, alien. But no, they were his. The same hands that had bandaged wounds, held patients, and now clutched a photo of himself that shouldn't exist. At 3:17 a.m., he got up and walked back toward room 407. The hallway was eerily quiet, except for a distant monitor beeping slowly like a heartbeat fading into silence. But when he reached the room, Ramiro was gone. The bed was empty, sheets folded, monitor turned off. No discharge papers, no transport, just gone. He rushed to the nurse's station. Where's the patient from 407? The night nurse blinked. That room's been empty since last year. Andrew stared at her. What? Room 407? Mr. Ramiro Gomez died in October. Cardiac arrest. I was on shift that night. That's not possible. I was just with him. He was alive. She looked uncomfortable. I think you need to rest, Andrew. He turned and walked away, ears ringing, heart pounding. Had he lost his mind? Was Ramiro ever really there? He stepped outside into the cold rain. He didn't know where he was going until his feet stopped in front of Clara's building. He rang her doorbell. It was 4:02 a.m. She opened the door in a robe, her face pale. "Andrew, what happened? I need to talk to you, please." She let him in. He sat on the couch, dripping water. She handed him a towel. "They said Ramiro died last year," he said, eyes hollow. "But I've been talking to him all week." Clara swallowed hard. "He died in front of me. I held his hand. I signed the papers. Then how? I don't know. But I felt something change when you arrived, like time opened again." "Do you remember the photo?" Clara nodded. "The one you showed me at the hospital?" "I'm in it, Clara. With him. From decades ago." She sat slowly. "There's something I didn't tell you. The day after the orphanage burned, a man visited the Red Cross tent. He didn't speak. He just watched. He wore a gray coat. His face looked like yours." Andrew's skin crawled. "You never told anyone?" "I thought I imagined it. Until I met you." He stood. "Dr. Lin said my memories will stabilize or vanish in 48 hours. I don't know who I am, but I know I was meant to meet him. And you." Clara took his hand. "Then maybe we're not here to understand it. Maybe we're here to finish something. Or begin it," Andrew whispered. Suddenly, her daughter Lucia stepped into the room. "I heard you say Ramiro." Andrew turned. "Do you remember him?" She nodded. "I dream about him sometimes. In my dreams, he's younger. He says things I've never heard before, but they feel familiar." "What kind of things?" Lucia sat beside him. "He says I'm the anchor, that everything begins with me." Clara looked stunned. "Anchor?" Andrew remembered what Lynn had said. "You're a temporal anchor." But what if Lucia was? What else did he say? Lucia closed her eyes. "He said we're in a loop, and the only way out is to remember who closed it." Andrew's heart stopped for a beat. "Who closed it?" Lucia looked up, and in that moment her face didn't look like a teenager's. It looked ancient. "He did," Andrew whispered. "Ramiro." Lucia shook her head slowly. "No, you. The first memory." Andrew couldn't speak. Lucia's words echoed like thunder. "You closed the loop." It didn't make sense. He was just a nurse, a man with a blurry past and a strange photo in his pocket. But her eyes, they looked into him, not at him, through him. Clara reached for her daughter. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Lucia stood, almost trance-like. "He was the first. Before any of us. Before Ramiro. Before me." Andrew tried to keep calm. "How do you know that?" Lucia pointed to his chest. "Because your presence is heavy, older than time. You forgot, but the world didn't." Clara's voice cracked. "Lucia, are you okay?" Lucia blinked fast, as if snapping out of something. Then suddenly, her legs buckled. Andrew caught her before she hit the floor. Clara rushed over. "She's burning up." They laid her on the couch. Andrew held her hand, and in that instant, he remembered. Not a flash, not a dream, a memory. He was standing in a grey room, walls made of metal, cold lights, a humming sound from above. Across from him, a panel of scientists. One of them, Dr. Lin, but younger, much younger. "You are the only stable one," she had said. "The others break. You don't. That's why we keep sending you back." He remembered screaming, "I'm not your experiment," but they had wiped him. Again, again, again. Andrew staggered back, letting go of Lucia's hand. His heart pounded like it would rip from his chest. "I've been here before," he muttered. Clara looked at him. "Where?" "This moment, this exact night, this house, you, her, the rain, the same words, over and over, and every time, I forgot." Lucia sat up slowly. "But this time you remembered." Andrew stared at her. "What am I?" she whispered. "The witness." Andrew frowned. "I thought Ramiro called me that, as a metaphor." Lucia shook her head. "No, it's your title. You were created, or maybe chosen, to witness moments of collapse, of trauma, of change, because only you can carry them across time. But the price was your memory and your identity. Andrew turned to Clara. I've been inserted into different lives, just to observe. And sometimes intervene, Lucia said. Like you did for me, when I was under the rubble. You carried me out. Andrew's voice broke. That wasn't Ramiro? She shook her head. He found us, but you saved me. Saved. Tears filled Clara's eyes. You're the man I saw through the smoke, the one who disappeared. Andrew couldn't hold back anymore. He fell to his knees, trembling. Why? Why erase me every time? Lucia stood now, steadier than before. Because knowing the truth too early breaks the cycle. You have to forget, so you'll follow the pain again, feel it fresh, be moved enough to act. That's how the loop sustains itself. Andrew shook his head. I can't go through this again. You don't have to, Lucia said. You remembered. That means the loop is weakening. Just then, Clara's phone buzzed. A single message. She looked down. It was from a blocked number. One word. Run. Andrew looked up. What is it? Before she could answer, the lights went out. The house plunged into darkness. A soft hum began. Low at first, then rising. Andrew's breath hitched. That sound. I know that sound. From the hallway, a glow began to form. Blue, electric. Clara grabbed Lucia. We have to get out. But it was too late. The room erupted in light, and three figures stepped through it, wearing black suits, their eyes glowing faint white, and in the center of their chests, a sigil Andrew hadn't seen in years, the loop, folded into an eye. The ones who guard the loop. The three figures stepped fully into the room, the light behind them vanishing like a vacuum sucking the air out of time itself. Their movements were synchronized, mechanical, precise. They were tall, faceless under mirrored masks, and the strange emblem on their chests glowed faintly, a loop twisted into an all-seeing eye. Andrew stood between them and Clara, shielding her and Lucia without thinking. Who are you? He demanded. The one in the center stepped forward, voice flat and without emotion. We are the sentinels of the continuum, agents of temporal integrity. Andrew clenched his fists. You work for the Foundation. No one works for the Foundation, the sentinel replied. The Foundation exists to correct deviations. You are the deviation. Clara shouted, he remembered. That's not a deviation. That's evolution. Lucia whispered, they don't see it that way. They never did. Andrew's voice was shaking with fury. Why now? Why show up here? Because you have crossed the threshold of awareness. You were never meant to reach this moment in clarity. You were designed to forget. But I didn't, Andrew snapped. Not this time. And for that, the sentinel said, stepping closer, the cycle must reset. No, Andrew said, stepping forward. Not again. You are not authorized to decide. Andrew's memories surged forward like a tsunami. Hundreds of lives, moments, faces, places, every war he'd walked through, every soul he'd held, every time he had watched people die, knowing he couldn't interfere too soon. He had relived trauma more times than he could count, because he had been programmed to feel it, carry it, and forget it. But Lucia had changed everything. He looked back at her. She was glowing faintly now, not just from fear, but something inside her. Her presence pulsed with power, calm and truth. She's the anchor, Andrew said. She holds it together. The sentinels looked at her. She is the echo of the first collapse. She should not have survived. Clara stepped forward. But she did, and she remembers too, which is precisely why you are now classified as corrupt sequences, the sentinel said. Andrew raised his voice. What happens if we resist? You vanish, permanently. Andrew took Clara's hand, then Lucia's. Then you'll have to erase all three of us. And guess what? I'll still find my way back. I always do. The sentinels paused. One of them turned to the leader. Variables unstable. Recursion loop integrity at 64%. Collapse pending. The leader stepped back. We will initiate reset protocol in 60 seconds. Andrew's heart raced. He had less than a minute. He turned to Lucia. You remember the song? She nodded. Always. Sing it, he said. Lucia's voice, soft and fragile, began to hum the same melody she'd sung beneath the rubble as a child. Andrew closed his eyes and began to recite the words she never spoke, but he had always heard. The lullaby unlocked a vibration deep in the walls. The room began to pulse. The sentinels staggered slightly. Temporal frequency spiking, one of them announced. Anchor breach occurring. Lucia began to glow brighter. Clara held her as her feet lifted slightly from the ground. The melody intensified. Andrew stepped forward, the photograph of him and Ramiro burning in his pocket, literally igniting in blue fire without consuming the paper. The loop was breaking. Stop! The lead sentinel screamed. This is unstable! Andrew opened his eyes, then let it break. In a single blinding flash, time fractured. The sentinels disintegrated into ash. The walls of the room fell away, and the three of them, Andrew, Clara, and Lucia, were suddenly standing in the middle of a vast white space. Empty, infinite, still. Lucia looked around. Where are we? Andrew whispered, outside the loop. Clara asked, is it over? Andrew looked ahead. In the distance, a shape was forming. A door, but not a normal one. A door with his name on it. Lucia pointed. That's yours. And yours too, Andrew said, looking at her. Clara stepped closer. What happens if we walk through? Andrew took a breath. Then this time, we write the story. The story we choose to write. The door stood tall before them, silent, glowing, and impossibly real in that infinite white void. There was no wall, no ceiling, no floor, yet they stood as if supported by purpose alone. Andrew approached slowly, the weight of countless lives pressing against his shoulders, etched across the surface of the door. Andrew, witness no more. He reached out his hand, but paused, turned to Lucia and Clara. You don't have to come with me. Lucia stepped forward. But we were always meant to. Clara smiled softly. You broke the loop for all of us. If you walk alone, the lesson gets lost. If we walk together, it becomes legacy. Andrew looked back at the door. It pulsed faintly under his fingers, as if sensing the resolution building within him. For the first time in his existence, he wasn't just reacting to fate, he was shaping it. I used to think I was cursed, he said, that my only role was to watch people suffer and forget. But I finally understand. I wasn't cursed. I was chosen. Lucia tilted her head. Chosen by who? Andrew looked up, eyes misty. By the ones who couldn't speak, the ones who needed someone to carry their story forward. I wasn't built to forget. I was broken, so I would never stop remembering. Clara placed a hand on his shoulder. So what happens now? We walk through, he said, and we live, fully. No resets, no missions, no more silence. The three of them stepped forward, hands clasped. The door opened slowly, not with a creak, but with a hum, like a new frequency welcoming them home. And then, light. Warm, gentle, alive. Suddenly, they were standing in a small village, a place filled with color, music, laughter. Children ran barefoot. The sun hung low, golden against the sky. Trees bloomed where there had once been ash. Andrew looked around, stunned. I know this place. It's the village, Lucia said. Before the bombing. Andrew nodded. Before the war, before the foundation, before everything. They walked among the people. No one noticed them, yet no one feared them either. It was as if they belonged, always had. They came to a house, simple, wooden, A little girl stood at the door. She looked up. It was Valentina, but not the grown woman Clara had become. No, this was the child again, singing. Andrew fell to his knees. She walked to him, placed her tiny hands on his face and whispered, "You came back." Tears streamed down his cheeks. "I never really left." Behind him, Clara wept silently. Lucia looked to the sky, where a flock of birds flew in perfect circles, forming a shape, not a loop, but a spiral, expanding, evolving. They had done it. The cycle was broken, not erased, transformed. And now the world was rewriting itself. Later, they sat under a tree that hadn't existed minutes before. Andrew leaned back, eyes closed. "For the first time in forever, I don't hear the ticking." "No more time limits," Clara said. "No more resets," Lucia added. "Just life, raw, unfolding, uncontrolled." Andrew whispered, "Do you think anyone will ever believe this story?" Clara laughed. "They don't have to. It happened. That's enough." Lucia smiled. "But someday, someone will tell it, and someone else will listen, and then, maybe, they'll remember too." A breeze passed through the trees, carrying the soft sound of a lullaby, the same one that had once echoed beneath rubble, now free, now alive. And somewhere, far beyond memory or time, the last loop shattered into stardust, never to trap another soul again. The end.